if everything broke just right, maybe they could get into the playoffs. But to me, I need to see, is Jalen Hurts the guy? You're going to learn that this year. You have the ability you have assets to be able to rectify that if he's not the guy for next year. You also need to know, what's this coaching staff like? What's this head coach going to be? For me, it's all about finding those things out to decide how far away this franchise is, or perhaps even how close it could be next year or the year after to get back to where they want to be. And the pieces aren't here. You're right. They're not even close.
Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll try and not kill ourselves during the show because of last night's 6 o'clock. We did try and get through it, and we will all day long. We'll do so with a little LPO. Scott Grayson, Fox 29 sports reporter, hops aboard with us. Scott, how badly did the Sixers ruin your Father's Day?
Yeah, I was waiting for that all night long, right? And then it finally comes. I got my kids actually staying up late to watch it with me, and yeah, it was disappointing. And that's why it's great you guys are continuing. Obviously you're talking Birds. Today to me is the first full day we're all around here laser focused on the Eagles because the Phillies are having another ho-hum season. It's all on the Eagles now. Trying to raise everybody's spirits.
So it always is, Scott. I think there were, and I don't know because I wasn't at the game. Maybe from some of your Fox 29 compatriots. Was there an Eagles chant at that game? I saw somebody tweet, and I forget who. They actually put an Eagles chant in Game 7. I believe.
I saw that same thing. I agree with you. It wouldn't surprise me at all from this fan base. They're passionate. You guys know that. And the moment that this team started to let them down last night, and they could feel it. I mean, we all saw it, right? With about a minute, 2 minutes to go, you just felt like it was gone. And the fans aren't idiots, obviously, and wouldn't surprise me if that in fact did happen because. These fans, and I think they were letting the Sixers know you let us down.
But let's follow in your line of thinking here that, the Phillies, they're presently in second place. They're below 500, but they're in second place. But the Mets look better, and we still, at least I believe, there are teams that are behind them in the division that are more talented than they are. So don't know if it's going to lead to a great second half. We're not even at the halfway point, but the Phillies are what they are, which right now isn't good enough. That means you're right, turning the attention to the Eagles. How badly is that going to sting when this team gets out of the game? Who was it we had on, Johnny Mac, who said? Bob Groats. Well, if they don't win that opener, they could be 0-8. Oh, my God. Go ahead. Just stick the pencil right in my ear, Bob Groats. Thank you very much. I hope he's woefully wrong, but it's not completely outrageous what he said. This team right now isn't constructed to win double-digit games. They're not going to come out and contend for a Super Bowl, even though we're only 3+ years away from being a Super Bowl champion. How deflating is that going to be if the Eagles are what they are? If Jalen Hurts isn't as good as the flashes he showed last year, what kind of doldrums is Philadelphia going to be in?
Well, let me start by saying I was laughing before the break, Jody, because you are exactly where I am. I need to see who that second corner is ultimately going to be. It better not be what they have right now. And
Michael Jacquet, baby. You're not a big Michael Jacquet fan?
I don't mind him. I'd take him any day, sure. I mean, I look at this team and the Zach Ertz thing. You're right, is holding them up. They can't move forward until they figure that out. And you look at this Jalen Hurts thing, and I'll tell you right now, I think for me, it's all about what expectations. Where's the bar for this season? You're right, it's not Super Bowl. I mean, if everything broke just right, maybe they could get into the playoffs. But to me, I need to see, is Jalen Hurts the guy? You're going to learn that this year. You have the ability you have assets to be able to rectify that if he's not the guy for next year. You also need to know, what's this coaching staff like? What's this head coach going to be? For me, it's all about finding those things out to decide how far away this franchise is, or perhaps even how close it could be next year or the year after to get back to where they want to be. And the pieces aren't here. You're right. They're not even close. But I will say this. I have seen a lot more maturity out of Jalen Hurts this offseason than I think I ever saw from Carson Wentz. He is trying to be the guy for this locker room. He is trying to do all the right things in front of his teammates and in front of the cameras, quite frankly, to show that he is the guy. So I'm glad to see him get the opportunity. I'm curious to see what it looks like. I want to see how this coaching staff tries to set him up for success and not failure. And all those things are going to be intriguing to me starting right away, like you said, in week one. And if they don't win week one, this fan base isn't patient. We all know that. And you're right. The negative energy is going to start to build exponentially with every loss that they come out of the gate with.
All right, Scott, I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable position because I'm going to be the optimistic guy here. We just saw the Hawks versus the Sixers. Ben Simmons is supposed to be the star, but the real star was Trae Young in that series. Now he had been, obviously, was a great scorer before then, but this is pretty much his coming out party. On the other hand, Carson Wentz was supposed to be the star here. He wasn't. Who's to say Jalen Hurts can't turn into Trae Young, and all of a sudden we have a star at the quarterback position?
Yeah, and my counter to that would be, I love your optimism. I am all for it.
I don't believe
However, how many times, we can all count on one hand, maybe how many times something like that has really panned out in the world of professional sports. But that's why we love it, because it can. It's that unknown that you wait to see. And there are some intangibles with Jalen that you see that you think, boy, this guy, I think could potentially have that star quality about him. Look, he's been through as much adversity as any other potential college athlete that came in here, having to go through Alabama, Oklahoma, and being successful in all those places. And that's not easy. And then to come in here, get an opportunity. And, look, if anybody expected him to get them to the playoffs last season, you were fooling yourself. But to come out and just show flashes after not really having a training camp, after not really having many reps during the season until it was time to get in there, and then have the one reps. I think the guy can weather the storm. I think he is built to be able to weather playing here at the quarterback position in this city. He seems mentally able to handle it. And we can talk about plenty of athletes. You can do a show on athletes who couldn't handle playing in this city.
Yeah, real quick, let me jump in there, Scott, because I think it's interesting. Normally, we're worried about athletes that we don't know if they have it mentally, maybe, or some kind of intangible, but we know they're talented enough. With Jalen Hurts, it seems, with Jalen Hurts, it seems to be the opposite, excuse me. We know he has the intangibles, but we don't know if he has that top tier talent. Can he throw the football? Can he be accurate? Can he get it downfield? Can he do it consistently? It's kind of weird with a young player. The intangibles are there, but we don't know if the skill set's there.
And that to me, it goes back to where you set the bar for this season. I think, you have to answer that question in the 6 of 17 games now this season that you're going to get to figure out, does he have the ability? And look, you can't just say in week one he does or doesn't. You have to take week one. You're going to put a snapshot next to it, week 4, week 8, every quarter post. Let's see how he does compared to where he was. Are we seeing that growth? How are we seeing the guys respond around him? Are they buying into him? How's this offensive line doing? Because if this offensive line stays healthy, which we say every year, and they never do, then he's got protection. They're talented. They're a talented group. And he's got protection. He's got the ability. Does he look to evade the pocket right away? Or does he buy time like a Russell Wilson with his eyes downfield? Those kind of things can really break the back of a defense versus the guy who gets out of the pocket and just runs. So, which he did a little bit of last year. But I think we're going to learn a lot about him. And that, to me, again, sets up, a year from now where we're going, look, like in 2017, 2 years removed from kind of an implosion, they're really right back there and they're a group, or we're not even close still. And that would be very disappointing.
We all like the Eagle offensive line if healthy. It's one of the strengths of the team. As a matter of fact, might be the strength of the team if they're all healthy. Big if I'll continue to say if, but we're all crossing our fingers and believing that's going to be the case. What if they're showing that not only are they healthy, man, can this team run block? Man, can they move the pile? Man, can they create holes? But the owner kind of likes passing, and he lives for passing, and he wants to see the Eagles be the most talented passing team in the National Football League. And the stories this year broken about him sitting in meetings with Doug Peterson after wins and going, yeah, but we didn't pass the ball quite enough. What does Nick Sirianni do if his best choices are let's run it down other teams' throats, and they're having success with it on the field, yet there's an all-important little birdie on his shoulder going, throw the ball more, throw the ball more, throw the ball more. How is that going to shake out, Scott?
That would be fascinating to watch, Jody, because you're absolutely right. And you got to wonder, we all are creatures of habits. We all learn from mistakes. Will Lurie, after experiencing what last season was, as awful as it was, if there is success happening on the ground, will he sit back and say, but I kind of like winning right now? And you're right. I think this team is built, and I think and we all have heard the stories. Will Nick Sirianni be more of a running or passing coach? Look, Miles Sanders, I've been screaming this. John, you know this too. Give him 20 touches a game, at least. And now you've got some other backs there as well who can handle roles. And to me, they're building themselves to be more of a, let's just say, maybe they pass the ball out of the backfield. But to me, those are as good of a run. If it's a short pass, you get the guy out in space, you try to do things on the perimeter. They have the ability to do those kind of things with the backs they have right now. So to me, it almost seems like they're trying to build that to be more the strength and attack teams from there to take some of the pressure off Jalen to go downfield. Because, I'm excited to see Devontae Smith, but I don't know what I got in this receiving core. And when you come out in week one and you talk about, like you said, about the importance of not losing that game and potentially setting up a losing streak to start the season, are you really coming out firing with that receiving core right now? That's what you're going to try to do against an opponent? Or are you trying to control the clock a little bit? Let your offensive line, like you talked about, Jody. I mean, these guys are built to run block, to get you those 3-4 yards per play, cloud of dust, whatever it takes. And then if you give it enough times, we all know Miles Sanders can break one. And if he does, he has the speed to be able to go the distance. I just want to say, that's what I want to see, Jody, quite frankly, what you talked about. And you're right. How does Jeffrey Lurie handle that? Can he stay out of it? Can he let success build from that? Those are going to be questions we won't know the answer to definitively, but could be fascinating to try to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Scott. That makes the most sense. And I never say run first in the modern NFL. I think we talk more about balance because you have to throw the ball to be successful. That part, Jeffrey Lurie is correct about. But when you mention scaling back and understanding the strength of your team, which is not only Miles Sanders running the ball, but Jalen Hurts running the ball versus what you have at the receiver position, which is unproven, even though we all think Devontae Smith is going to be a very good player. But we have this owner, and we have this guy going in after upsetting Green Bay and saying, Doug, why didn't you throw the ball more? Jim Schwartz, a lot of people don't realize this. They think Jim was upset after the Super Bowl because his defense gave up 500 whatever yards. No, he was upset because he just won the Super Bowl. The owner said, why did you give up 500 yards? You not only have to win, you have to win correctly. And I don't see that changing with Jeffrey Lurie.
No, I mean, that's kind of the follow-up. You're right, John, to everything I just said. History does not say that he will adjust his philosophy in any way based on any result from the year before, positive or negative. And we're all learning, and I think we're all growing more and more frustrated that for a long time we thought, and we laughed, right, at Dallas. Yeah. Look at Jerry Jones. Look what he's doing down there. Isn't it funny? Oh, and he'd get involved and make a completely bonehead move, and we all laugh about it here. Well, I think what we're learning is we have somebody who's a little more like that than we thought. And now we're having to kind of eat a little bit of humble pie as we watch all this unfold. And, why do they keep going out and getting guys who are green at the head coaching position? Because it's easy to tell that guy what you want done. I'm giving you this opportunity. It's not like there's any clout or history there that you can draw on to say, look, I know what I'm doing here. Look at my record. I'm doing it this way. No, Lurie is pulling the strings here, and we all have to accept that. And you just hope, though, that as Nick Sirianni lets his offense unfold, and look, I think there's an argument to be made that you could tell Lurie, I want to get to that one day, but my team right now is not constructed for me to go downfield all the time. So I got to pick my spots, set it up through the run, and I will take my shots. You got me, Devontae Smith. Okay. We got to test him out. We got to see what he can do downfield. But wouldn't it be better if I could set him up for success because they have to play the run and then we take a shot?
I'll play a little devil's advocate here, and I don't know if it's accurate, but just optimistically, the owner was the one who said we're going through a transitional period, right? Wasn't anybody else, wasn't Howie Roseman, wasn't Nick Sirianni after he got the job. No, it was the owner who said when he decided to move away from Doug Peterson, this is going to be a transitional period. Well, when you're in a transitional period, that means you got to figure some stuff out. You're taking a step backwards to take two forward. And if that's the case, are you really going to tell Nick Sirianni exactly how many passes you show game in, game out? Don't you have to give him the chance to transition a little bit to prove that he is the guy to take this organization forward? Am I too optimistic here? Glass half full, Scott?
No, I think you're right. I think you've got to be able, if you're right, if you're going to call it a transitional year, look, any manager, any boss, right? I mean, I haven't been in the business world. I've been in this business like you guys have. But from what I hear, when you hire somebody to run a department or a portion of your business, you hire them to do a job and you sit back and you watch them and you see what you like, you see what you don't like, and then you start throwing your 2 cents in. I think you got to give, and I hope Jeffrey does this according to, like you said, Jody, what he said, sit back, give him the entire year, watch. He's likely going to make in-game mistakes. Doug did too. Well, Doug probably did all the way through. There were times we all scratched our head at times. What's he doing? But look, it worked for him. He won a Super Bowl because of how aggressive he was. Let Nick have the season. If it is a transition year in your mind, Jeffrey, then sit back, let him have the season without you hovering over him to see who he is, what his philosophy is, how does his staff operate, what does he get out of these guys? Everybody, he's a high energy. We all laugh, right? And playing rock, paper, scissors to figure out the competitiveness of these guys. I love that he's trying to find a way in this COVID era to learn something about these guys and to hop on a Zoom like we are right now or something like that and say, oh, how you doing? What are you doing this offseason? What kind of workouts you doing? There's things I like that Nick's doing, and let's sit back and see how it plays out. Because if Jeffrey really is taking it as a transition year, then you wait to tell him what you liked and didn't like at the end of the season. When you have really, I mean, isn't it right? You want facts to be able to go to a guy with, like, look, you called this many timeouts in the 2-minute warning, the 2-minute drill. Like, let's break that down a little bit. You're right, Jody. You got to let the guy show what he's got. You hired him here. We're all curious to see what he's got. We don't need feeling like he's got his hand held on the sideline or an ear, in his headset, somebody from above telling him what he needs to do in game coming from the owner's booth.
Yeah, I hear you, Scott.
I'm not optimistic, John.
No, I'm not optimistic. What I will say is this, Scott. I mean, we were out in Minneapolis on a way too cold winter's night when the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. Now, less than 3 years after that, this guy fired his head coach who won him that Super Bowl. So I don't know if a new name in the coach's chair is going to spark immense change coming off that type of success. So one, that's my concern. But here's my biggest concern, Scott, and I want to run this by you. Jody just talked about, Jeffrey Lurie said it's a transition. This team does this every year. It's now an annual tradition. Howie Roseman says we got to get younger. We got to get cost effective. We got to rebuild this thing now. We're past that Super Bowl window. Then they go on and the offseason continues and continues, and they start saying to themselves, well, we're in a bad division. Maybe we can compete. Let's bring in the Ryan Kerrigan. We'll see who the cornerback's going to be. Let's call about Julio Jones. Let's see about Deshaun Watson if Allegate. Every time they go down the same wormhole. So I think to myself, well, Shepard Lurie said transition in January. That doesn't mean anything in June.
You're absolutely right. They all start drinking the Kool-Aid every year, and they're not necessarily wrong looking around the division. Clearly, we saw it last year play out. I don't think it's going to be that bad this year. Therefore, you're not going to stick in as long as you did with losing games the way that they did. But you're right, John. As the season gets closer, every fan does it, right? You look, well, you think all the things that could break your way, and you go, hey, this could be our year. But they can't do that. They're in the trenches with this whole thing, and they have to look at it from a 2, 3, 4, 5-year approach as how you're trying to build towards being a repetitive winner like they were back during Andy Reid's days. Even, Doug had success getting to the playoffs. But you're right. They cannot look at this and start buying in and believing they have every opportunity to win this thing, particularly because, and here we go circling back, you still don't have anybody on the other side of Darius Slay. So I don't care, no matter how good Darius Slay is going to be, and they don't throw at him, you don't have anybody over there that's going to keep Aaron Rodgers from picking him apart downfield every bit like they did the first time that they played them last season, or anybody else that you're going to take. Dak Prescott's going to air it out down the field. As dumb as the Cowboys can be, they can figure that out. And so I think you've got to solve that before you can start getting optimistic. And I want to believe they have a plan there. And Jody, I believe you're probably right that it's tied to when they can finally free up the money from Zach Ertz to be able to make that move. But with every passing day that goes by, doesn't it feel like that window of opportunity to get this guy is slowly closing?
Right. And a couple of veteran cornerbacks have coming off the market, but Mr. Nelson's still sitting there, the most probably the most talked about player who's never played for the Philadelphia Eagles here in Philadelphia, because everybody's got to bring his name up on a day in, day out basis. I do want to get your thoughts on this because I haven't heard them. Again, dealing with fans, and we do here on Birds 365, and how people look at things, it always amazes me that people just take what someone else does somewhere else and then immediately say, well, what happened here in Philadelphia? The guy I'm referring to is Carson Wentz. They decided to move off him this year, traded him to his buddy Frank Reich. We'll find out what kind of season he has for the Colts after the god-awful season he had here. I thought they made the right move and had to move on. But people will watch what Carson Wentz does and say, the old what if. What if we had kept Carson Wentz? With what Carson Wentz does in Indianapolis doesn't guarantee he would have done here in Philadelphia. But you've got to draw your conclusions along some line. What kind of year do you think Carson Wentz is going to have in Indianapolis? And will we be going, what if, all season long here in Philly?
It's Philly. We will naturally be going, what if. But yes, I love the conversation with that and the topic, Jody, because you're right. We will. Every game you watch, right, you're going to be watching that lower ticker, and you're going to see the stat line for Carson, and you're going to see the score. Look, I think it was a win-win for both. I can't believe, number one, that both sides let it deteriorate, that relationship, to what it became. Really childish on both parts. I thought Carson handled it poorly. I thought the Eagles handled it, poorly as well. It had to happen. And you cannot draw conclusions based on what he does there with Frank Reich and say, well, that's what he would have done here. There's no way. He's got a clean slate in a new city that's not going to be on him anything like Philadelphia was. This is a perfect fit in my mind for Carson. I would not be surprised if he comes out and looks not exactly like 2017 Carson, but more like it. I think Frank's going to have a good offense in place for him. He's got good pieces around him. But you're right. We're going to look there and wonder what if. I don't think that's healthy for anybody out there to do. We got to worry about what we got here now with Jalen. And but you're right. It's just going to throughout the rest of his career, you're going to see Carson, any success, any failure, and you're going to wonder, what if they would have kept him? What if all that happened last season never happened? But Carson, I didn't like to call him injury prone. I thought he got hurt through playing the game aggressively, usually. I like the fact that he was a gamer. He stayed in there with a torn ACL and threw a touchdown in L.A. And I think there's things you have to stop, and you've got to at least appreciate that he did here. But that being said, you don't want him to fail this year if you're an Eagles fan. Because if he doesn't reach a certain threshold on plays, you don't want him to get hurt here either. Then you don't get a first-round pick out of this deal. And at this point, if you're the Eagles, you're already counting on 3 first-round picks next year. Wouldn't it sting if it didn't get to be that because Carson got hurt or he stunk as badly as he did here, and Frank had to make a move because he's probably the guy who advocated getting him there? I mean, who knows how that would play out. Bottom line, I think Carson needed the change. The Eagles needed to make the change. I agree with you, Jody. It had to happen. But as I look back on it, the thing that soured me the most is how these were all adults and they all, on both sides, acted like children throughout the whole thing.
Scott, last one from me, and thanks for joining the show. Scott, watch Scott on Fox 29, does a phenomenal job. Props and locks, even with our boy Eitan Shander as well.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Nick Sirianni from this perspective. You talked about him a little bit, but he just turned 40 early June 15th, earlier this month. My biggest concern, I don't care about the competitive stuff, the rock, papers, and scissors, the energy, the three-point shots, although I'd like him to beat somebody at something. It's great to be competitive, but win something.
Let's put him up against Ben Simmons.
Yeah, exactly.
How can the contest? I'm in, I'll play.
He can win that. The lack of experience on this coaching staff. Jeff Stoutland's back. Jamal Stevenson has some experience as the assistant head coach. But you look at the template of young coaches. Even here, Doug wasn't that young, but a first-time coach. They gave him Jim Schwartz.
Right.
Sean McVay had Wade Phillips. Matt Nagy had Vic Fangio. Matt LaFleur had Mike Pettin. On and on and on. Nick Sirianni's got Kevin Patullo, Jonathan Gannon. Who are these guys, Scott?
That's what we all have to find out, John. You're right. And that was as soon as the Nick Sirianni hire happened, after we all went through, who's this guy? Where's he coming from? What's his background? The next thought was, okay, what are his assistants going to look like? Because I went to the same place thinking, okay, they're going to pair him up with somebody who's been here before on the defensive side. And obviously that didn't happen. So I don't know. Again, you look at, we're all creatures of habit. You found success and won a Super Bowl by following that recipe. So were you saying that you couldn't find that guy, or was Sirianni insisting that he got to pick his staff? I can't imagine that was necessarily the case, but you have unproven, untested guys all over the place. You're right, John. Look, sometimes that can really work out. Sometimes it can crash and burn badly, and we're going to find out how it works out. I can't say either way whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic about it. They definitely have introduced new personalities from the coaching staff to these players. The question is, particularly with the veterans, and this is the thing I guess we're all going to be watching, right? Does it seem like they bought in? Because if the veterans have bought in, then you get the locker room to buy in, at least to go into the season. And if you're any of those coaches, I think that's what you want. If you can at least get them to buy in going into week one, then you're at least running your stuff with them fully behind you. If we start to see, or you're watching, you're listening to those little cracks in the foundation that, Elaine Johnson or Jason Kelsey, when they're talking to Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, when you hear them talk, are you hearing buying in, or are you hearing a guy who's mostly just spitting out cliche after cliche and, we're going to take this 1 week at a time? That's what I want to see and find out to tell me whether or not these guys are any good, because they'll know in these meetings as they go through game planning and they go through camp. I mean, we're not going to know right now, but we'll know by the time we get to week one, I think, whether these guys believe that these assistants deserve to be where they are at this point, and whether, quite frankly, Nick deserves to be where he is.
All right, Scott, I know I'm sounding like I'm Mr. Glass half empty here today. It's because I hung out with Bob Groats, who said the Eagles could actually start the season 0-9. And I don't believe that. John and I are both on the record that we have the Eagles as an 8-9 football team this year. We, like everybody else, when the schedule came out, went win, loss, and we both came out at 8-9. I hope that is the case. That's actually a little optimistic because I'm doing Birds 365 here. So maybe I added a win here or there. But I do believe that. What if I'm wrong? What if Bob Groats is right? We just finished up the end of a very disappointing Sixers season where they had two fan incidents. One dumping popcorn on Russell Westbrook of the Wizards, and last night some idiot throwing a water bottle on the court while time was still on the clock for the game. And my guy, Matt Cord, gotta love him, gets immediately on the bullhorn and says, "You will be immediately ejected. The season's over. They're done. You're going to go out and shoot yourself in a parking lot." And no, well, what is threatening that they're going to be thrown out going to do? But Matt had to do his job, and he did it well. what if the Eagles get off to this bad start and we're back to packed stadiums and Lincoln Financial Field is all green and the green's not good. The green is ugly. The Eagles are 1-5. How is this town, this fan base going to handle it after a Sixers disappointment, after a Phillies not saving our bacon, and the Eagles get out to a god-awful start? How's that going to play in Philly?
Boy, I'll tell you what, I haven't even really considered it, but hearing you talk, Jody, and painting the picture, you can almost see it happening. And man, you talk about a train coming off the tracks. You got a lot of young people in positions that have never, while Jalen Hurts has dealt with adversity, even as bad as last season was, he didn't have to listen to those boos, didn't have to hear those coming down after the first offensive possession. And we all know that will happen if you go 3 and out for the 4th game in a row. Yeah, it could get ugly real quick. And you know, you see all over the country, all these fans, we were all kept away from these stadiums for over a year. It's as if somebody has, you know, introduced rabies to everybody, and these fans are acting like idiots everywhere. Look, I'm all for showing your displeasure. I think we all agree. Booing is great. Let everybody know. And here's the thing. If it does go that bad, Jody, and I know we always say this, don't go to the games. You want to send the biggest message to the owner, don't go to the game.
Don't buy the merchandise.
Right.
Don't buy stuff.
By all means, turn it on TV. Yell at your TV all you want. Laugh at the bad if it gets that bad. And then you just look at it from like our perspective. We would start breaking. Well, why are they 1-5? Why are they 1-6? What seems to be the problem? How can they fix it? But I think, you know, and you guys are here to do it, you know, and I'm here to try to give my 2 cents as well. I think 8-9 is not bad. I feel like this will be a 500 team. They're going to come out and play great some games. They're not going to play great others. Opponents don't know how to game plan for these guys because these coaches haven't been out there. There is no history on them. So in a way, you have a bit of an advantage in the early games. Well, they don't know exactly what kind of offense you're going to run, how you're going to try to work, what kind of defense you're going to do. Well, no, Schwartz didn't blitz with these guys very much. Will this next guy be a polar opposite, or will he be somewhere in the middle? Who's going to be playing the second corner? So all these things we have to answer. And I, you know, I'll throw my 2 cents in there. I agree with you guys. I think we are looking at something close to a 500 team. It might be 7-10, 8-9. There's going to be goods. There's going to be bads. But Jody, you're right. I mean, it in a way would be a little comical to see how these fans lose their marbles. You're right. We just had the Sixers give you a huge disappointment.
But you know who's getting revenge on Atlanta, Scott? Week 1, the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right. There you go. We owe Atlanta one. Yeah. And I think I heard Scott's phone ring with a message from his program director going, good job. Just remember, if they're not going to the game, they can watch the Eagles on Fox 29. Week in and week out, watch them on Fox 29.
You got that right.
Scotty, great stuff. Thanks for coming on with us today. We'll certainly be getting you back up again sometime soon. Sorry to the Sixers ruined your Father's Day. Thanks for hopping on board with us on the Monday thereafter.
No, I appreciate you guys. Good to talk to you.
Scott Grayson from Fox 29 here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mac and Mac, guys, we've still got an hour left to roll today. I do want to ask my partner about an FU player. We'll explain when we get back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.